Hello, this is Pat Ray again. We're doing DUI Risk Education Module 3. Some of you have sent me your addresses so that I can send out the packets. I can do that if you want to text me 217-766-9132, and I can get those packets to you. One person stopped by right before 6 o'clock or called close to 6, and I did not know, so I did not have the packet ready. I've been a little behind the 8 ball with all these new things that I'm doing that I haven't done in this way before. So I hope this finds you all well. Today we are talking about alcohol, other drugs, and their effects. So on Module 3, I will be turning over here for just a minute. To recap, we began by talking about how the arrest happened, what were some of the BACs and whatnot that happened that night, what are our thoughts and feelings about that, and what is our plan to avoid the having a DUI in the future, and remembering it's all about making choices. The second module was all about the laws and consequences of DUIs, both legal consequences, penalties, and also the other consequences that come when we don't have a driver's license. Today, I want to, first of all, kind of start out by talking about what drugs are. Alcohol is a drug. It is a depressant drug, and it slows down the central nervous system. And we're going to talk about how that affects or impacts our driving and our judgment. Okay. To begin with, I want to say that drugs are mood-altering substances, and they have a significant impact on mind, body, health, and behavior. So a drug is a drug is a drug, whether it is alcohol, marijuana, medications, or illegal substances. Now, when somebody uses a drug of any kind, it is impossible to predict how that will affect each individual because each individual is different. Now, that's a point to remember. As you remember, we did a pre-test, so please remember that particular point. Now, in your manual that I am going to attach to your email that you had sent me, and when you send an email and it involves risk education, would you mind please putting that in the subject? So I get tons of emails from people that are doing all kinds of services with us. So if you could clarify that, that would make things a little simpler, easier for me to find you and to get a response to you. Also, if your email is different than your name, always identify who you are. I get a lot of emails. I have people that are completing the course, and I have people that are starting the course. So I need to have your first and last name in the email or in the subject. Okay, thank you. All right, so over on page 16 of the manual, the top part starts out by talking about factors that influence a drug's effect. And there are many, and we're going to cover some of those. Number one is weight, how much the person weighs. Of course, the less a person weighs, there will be a higher BAC, blood alcohol content, and whatever other drug is going to be higher in their bloodstream because they have less blood circulating. Okay. So weight makes a difference. Mixing drugs. We talked about the synergistic effect of mixing two drugs together. This is another point that was on the pre-test. So you have one drug, say it's a beer, you drink a beer, you have an impact from that, you have an effect from that. Say you are taking some pain medication, that you have an impact or an effect. When you take them together, you have a great big effect, a more significant effect than you would with either one separately. And that's why when urine tests are done and it is found that you have more than one substance in your system at the same time, or when blood tests are done, that is an indicator of impaired driving. Okay. All right. So mixing drugs makes a difference. That's a factor in how it's going to affect the individual. Then individual chemical makeup. We are all different. So therefore, it's going to affect us differently. Experience with the drug. Some of us might be used to drinking a shot or two of whiskey. Somebody else may not. They may be used to having a glass of wine. So if they drink the whiskey, it may have a different effect on them. Or if they're not used to drinking at all and they drink, it may have a different effect on them. Same way with other drugs. Emotions. If you go into the drinking episode, you're happy, that may have an effect on how that affects you. On the other hand, if you're mad and you go into it mad, angry, that may have an effect. You may drink to get drunk. Okay. If you are sad, that may change it too. Pour me another drink, and there you go. So, what the emotions are. Another thing is expectations, how you expect that you will act when you are under the influence. I'll give you an example. There was a study done at one point where they took a bunch of people, they gave them alcohol, and they said, get drunk. Took another bunch of people, they gave them what they thought was alcohol, and they said, get drunk. They put them together. As the time progressed, those who had been given the placebo or what they thought was alcohol, many of them were acting just as intoxicated as those folks who were, because they expected to act that way. Crazy, huh? Okay. Age is a big factor. For adolescents, adolescent is someone who is 24 years of age and under. So for adolescents, this frontal cortex, where we have our inhibitions, where our decision making, where our judgment, where our executive thinking is not fully developed. So what that means is kids, young folks, may make more risky choices than others. So when you add alcohol or other drugs to that may have a different effect on them. That's going to make them even more likely to engage in risky behavior. Elderly folks, such as myself, the older a person gets, less drug is needed to get the effect. So even with medication, sometimes as people get older, they have to change the medication. What they used to use, or the amount that they used to use, may be tweaked or changed as they get older. Well, it's the same way with alcohol and other drugs. So what Maybe I used to drink a pint of whiskey. Now, to get that and have that same effect, I may only take a couple of shots. So my metabolism has changed. My body has changed. Everything is not new and healthy. Uh, Organs are not the same as they were when I was 25. So there is a difference in how it affects me. Food. Did I eat? When did I eat? What did I eat? All of that has an impact. And of course, physical health. Physical health is a big one because if I am not healthy, the alcohol and other drugs will affect me more so or differently than somebody who is really healthy and, everything is going, working right in their system. Okay, so those are some. I don't know if I left it out. No. Okay, so the bottom line is it is impossible to predict how a person will react under the influence. We don't know how that effect is going to, how much of an effect that's going to have. Okay, so in your pre-test, you were asked if 3 different people drink the same amount of alcohol, they will what? We don't know. We absolutely don't know. All right. The next part is on page 16, and it talks about myths and facts. As part of this, I need you to do that little quiz, and I need you to tell me exactly what you think. Alcohol is not a stimulant. If you drink 1 beer, you will not become addicted. Alcohol can make you perform better sexually? Nope. Maybe marijuana does not affect the driving ability? Oh, yes, it does. Reflexes are affected. Beer can be as intoxicating as liquor? Oh, yes. Alcohol affects adults and teenagers about the same? No. Only time will rid the body of alcohol and its effects? Yes, for sure. Alcohol decreases skill? Yes, it does. Another study. They gave people, well, first of all, they had people write a sentence. They gave them a drink. They said, drink the drink. They drank the drink. They wrote another sentence, and that went on. They wrote, drink the drink, wrote a sentence, drink, sentence, and by the end of it, their sentence was all out of whack. They lost their skill. So therefore, we know alcohol decreases skill. What about this? Some people's bodies can rid of alcohol faster than others. What do you think? Give me some feedback on that one. Some people drive better after a drink. Nope. Coffee or a cold shower will sober you up? Absolutely not. All you have is a wide awake drunk. Only certain types of people become addicted to alcohol? No. Anybody can if we drink enough of it. Be able to hold your liquor means it's not much of a problem for you. What do you think? People react differently to similar amounts of alcohol. What did we say? We can't predict. The more you drink, the healthier your heart. Nope, that is not true. People are told or have been told in the past that a glass of wine with dinner is good for your heart. Okay, that's true. That could absolutely be true. But the drink is not like this, guys, and alcoholics cannot drink at all. And in fact, abuse of alcohol over a period of time causes heart disease. If it's easy to tell when it is easy to tell when you've had too much to drink or you've used too much drugs to drive. It's easy. No, it is not, or we wouldn't have this class. It's easy a person cannot get a DUI with prescription pills or THC in their blood system. Nope, that is not That is not correct. You can get a BAC, or excuse me, you can get a DUI without any alcohol in your system and at any BAC, even if it is under 0.08. Okay. Now, on page 17 in your manual, you will see a closer look at alcohol. And if you look at the picture at the top, you're going to see how alcohol works its way through your system, how it affects the brain, how it affects reflexes, your blood flow, your liver, your pancreas, your kidneys, your coordination, your heart and blood pressure, all of those. There's also a picture there of a woman who is pregnant, and you can see the baby in her womb, and she is drinking a beer. Guess what? That baby is drinking a beer too. Why? Because the mother's blood circulates through the umbilical cord to the baby. So whatever mama does, whatever mama drinks, that's what baby's drinking too. Now, you would not give your infant, I don't think, a bottle full of beer. You wouldn't do that. But yet, if the woman is pregnant and she's drinking a beer, that's exactly what is happening. Okay. Okay, so we want to talk about how it works for a moment. When you consume alcohol, 20% of it immediately passes through the stomach wall into the bloodstream, and the other 80% works its way through the small intestine. So, immediately, your brain is affected, and as we said, it's because the blood, boom, circulates, goes through your brain, the frontal cortex is affected, your judgment is affected immediately. There are some short-term effects because alcohol is a depressant drug that slows down the central nervous system, including the brain's functions. Then the judgment is affected, and as it works its way, as the more you drink, the more parts of the brain are affected, and the functions are decreased or shut down. Okay, that sounds crazy, but that's really what happens. And in fact, if you look over at the picture on page 19 and you look at that brain at the top, you will see that as you drink, judgment is affected, emotions and memory in the midbrain are affected. If you work your way to the back, coordination is affected. And guess what? If you continue to drink, it works its way back to the brain stem. Okay, so first of all, judgment is out of here. The midbrain handles things like emotions and memory function. So, have you ever known somebody who has some drinks and they start crying in their beer, as they say? Emotions. That part is beginning to be affected, and people's emotions change. Somebody that's a really nice person has a few drinks and they become an instant butthole. Same thing. Okay. All right. So now, as you work your way, as you continue to drink in the midbrain, your memory is affected. This is what happens. The more you drink, shuts down the function of the memory. That means you are up, moving around, doing stuff, saying stuff, but you don't remember it at all. That's why people say, hey, you did this and that last night. You don't remember it. It's hard for you to believe you did that. As you move on back, the coordination, your balance, your gait, the way you walk, being able to coordinate yourself, pick things up, move around, all of that becomes affected. And that's why you see people staggering and dropping and falling down, that kind of thing. As you continue to drink, it works its way to the brainstem. That's where all the automatic functions are. So, breathing, body temperature, heart, lungs, all of that shuts down and you die. Every year, people die. alcohol overdose, their brain, body organs just stop working. It often happens to young folks who are away at college or on their own for the first time because they don't have experience with the drug. They have not built what is called a tolerance, so their brain can't handle the amount of alcohol that they are consuming or the drug that they are using. And so it shuts down and they die. Happens every day somewhere. And older folks are not immune to it. Okay, so blood alcohol content, what does that mean? BAC. The more a person drinks, the more intoxicated he or she becomes. BAC measures a person's level of intoxication by calculating the percentage of the blood that is alcohol. So, if you drink a standard drink, a person who weighs on an average of between 140 to 180 pounds, on an average will have a blood alcohol content of 0.20. However, let us turn over to page 22 and 23, and you will see the scale, BAC chart, for men and one for women. Here we talk about how does alcohol impact or affect individuals. Well, men and women are affected differently. So if you look at the chart for a man, and you see that a male weighs approximately 140, 160. The higher it goes, men, it drops. So you may have at 160 for men a 0.02. If you look over at the scale for women, you will see if a woman drinks a drink, her BAC will be, and she weighs 160 pounds, her BAC will be 0.03. So when you says body composition is a factor because the larger person with more muscle mass will have more blood than a smaller person. So the same amount of alcohol will cause a higher BAC in the person with less body mass because it's mixing with a smaller quantity of blood. So on an average, it's going to affect women differently because of their body structure. Okay. Now, down at the bottom on page 23, we talk about BAC and crash risk. A BAC of 0.02 immediately begins to affect that judgment. It's the first to go. Next, 0.05, and your vision and your response times are affected. One thing about vision is 30% of your side vision is affected. You may not see people passing. You may not see people pulling out. It's impacted. Responses slow down at 0.05. Now, over on the next page, you will see that there's a scale at the top, and it talks about your BAC. And if you go up that, you can see that more and more and more of the driving skills are affected. So immediately is vision. You go on up, your tracking and steering is affected. You go on up, your steadiness, eye movement control, and your coordination. You move on up, your information processing and judgment is affected. Information processing. Information comes from our senses, our touch, our taste, our smell, our sight, our hearing. When those things begin to be affected, we're taking in information, Okay, that's how we take in information and it goes to the brain. The brain processes it and makes sense out of it and gives a message back out what to do. You're in the bar or anywhere and you're intoxicated. Somebody gives you a look. You process that incorrectly and you say, who are you looking at? Next thing you know, you've got a fight on your hands. Or you're in traffic. There's cars coming at you, cars at the side ready to pull out. You see that. It goes into your brain. Your brain tries to make sense out of that, but it doesn't process it correctly. It's hard to make choices. There is not good judgment, so it's affected. So the information processing system is impacted, and you think things that are not so. The next thing is concentration, attention, and speed control as you move up. That's why you've got people going 40 on the interstate and people going 100 through a neighborhood. Speed control. Okay, on the next, if we flip to the next page, you're going to see that the higher the BAC, the more likely you are to have a fatal crash. So a BAC of 0.05 through 0.09, you're 11 times more likely to have a crash. A BAC of 0.10 to about 0.14, you are 48 times more likely to have a fatal crash. Your BAC is 0.15 and over, you are 380 times more likely to have a fatal crash. Why? All your reflexes, your parts of your brain, your judgment, all of that is affected. You are more likely to not react or process information correctly, and therefore you put yourself and others at risk of death. Okay. What is standard drinking? That's the next one. Okay. We're going to talk about moderation. Moderation for men weighing around 170 pounds or so is generally 3 to 4 standard drinks 2 to 3 times a week. Moderation for women weighing approximately 137 pounds is 2 to 3 drinks 2 to 3 times a week. Typically, 4 to 5 drinks for a person weighing the amounts that we discussed within a 24-hour period is considered binge drinking. Okay. Loss of control is when a person cannot control their drinking or using. They can't stop once they start. That's a significant point because often most of the time, you are going to get a question from the hearing officer that says, have you ever lost control? Lost control means you can't stop. Loss of control does not mean that you said you were going to have 2 drinks and you had 6. That is not loss of control. That's binge drinking. That's abuse. It is not loss of control. Okay, if you want to know, we're talking about standard drinks here. A standard drink is a 12-ounce can of beer, an 8 to 9 fluid ounce malt liquor, a 5 fluid ounce table wine, a 1.5 ounce shot of liquor, 12 ounce bottle of wine cooler. Those are what we consider standards. Okay, so here's where the problem. As we said, one standard drink will make your BAC approximately 0.02 for a person weighing 170 pounds or thereabouts. depending on if you are a man or woman. So the issue is only if I get a beer in a 12-ounce can, a wine cooler in a 12-ounce can, or possibly a shot in the little mini measured shots bottles. That's the only way that I know that I'm actually getting a standard drink. Otherwise, if somebody is pouring those drinks, I don't know. I don't know, even if I'm pouring them myself. I don't measure, I just pour, right? So don't be fooled. Okay, so again, want to focus on this important point. There's only one thing that's going to sober you up, and that is time. So over on page 28, there's an activity here, and I want you to answer the question. If you did do the blood alcohol concentration test, put the results on this page, answer this question. Now we're going to talk about how long does it take to get the alcohol out of your body. Well, let's say that it's 2 a.m., you go to bed, you have a BAC of about 0.20. 3 a.m., it drops down to 0.185. 4 a.m., it drops down to 0.17. 5 a.m., it drops down to 0.155. 6 a.m., you're sleeping, it's 0.14. 7 a.m., you might be up for work, and it is still 0.125. Some people are on their way to work at this time. 8 a.m., it's 0.11. 9 a.m., many people are at work at this time, and they still have a BAC of 0.095 over the legal limit. 10 a.m., they are still legally intoxicated at 0.08. 11 a.m., they may drive to lunch. They could be still at a DUI risk at 0.065. Remember, you don't have to have a BAC of 0.08. At 12 a.m., you're feeling kind of grouchy. Your BAC is 0.05. At 1 p.m., you're feeling kind of tired, 0.035. 2 p.m., your head is clearing at 0.02. At 3 p.m., you're feeling a lot better at 0.005. And finally, at 4 p.m., the next day, you are sober at 0.00. Nothing but time. Nothing but time. What do you think? Do some people get rid of alcohol faster than others out of their body? I don't know. What do you think? What is the last time you went to bed with a BAC of 0.20? Okay. All right. Now we're going to move into short-term and long-term effects of alcohol abuse. So the short-term effects are something like this. You have some drinks, you get into an argument with your partner or somebody. That's a short-term effect. Your driving is going to be impaired. That's a short-term effect. You may have an interaction with your medication. In most cases, that's short-term effect unless you die. And overall, those are, your relationship problems, those things are relatively short term. However, other effects of alcohol abuse or drug abuse happen over time. So excessive drinking and using will cause, for an extended period of time, will cause long-term health effects. So, for example, one of those is liver disease. Whether it is alcohol or heroin, the liver, or whatever other drug, the liver processes or cleanses all the blood and sends all the impurities away. Okay? When you're healthy, when you first start using, your liver is in good shape. It's like a fluffy sponge. It cleanses, everything is going good. Abuse over an extended period of time makes your liver like a piece of leather. So therefore, when the impurities come to the liver, it backs it back up into the body, all that bile, and people turn yellow, the whites of their eyes, fingernails, liver disease, cirrhosis of the liver will kill you. Okay. All right. Other effects include heart disease. As we said before, if you continue to drink, it raises your blood pressure. When you're raising your blood pressure on a regular and extended period of time, then you're more likely to have things like heart attacks. Also, there is another disease that is called cardiomyopathy, which sometimes happens when people abuse alcohol for a period of time. Instead of the heart working as it's supposed to, squeezing the blood and circulating it as it's supposed to in the body, it becomes kind of loose. It's a muscle. All of a sudden, it's not doing that. It's not doing that. It is fibrillating, and therefore it is not circulating the blood. So a person can die from that. Okay. Another concern of the body is the pancreas. Increased and abusive use of alcohol and other substances affect the pancreas. The pancreas helps in the regulation, or it helps in the regulation of the body's blood sugar levels by producing insulin. In addition, it helps in digestion. It's instrumental in digesting food. So unfortunately, excessive use, long-term use, leads to what we call pancreatitis, or inflammation of the pancreas. Okay, last but not least, one important issue. Men often say this has nothing to do with them, but I beg to differ. We're going to talk about alcohol, drug use, abuse, and pregnancy. On page 31 is a picture of a little boy. And now, part of your assignment today, I want you to Google alcohol or fetal alcohol spectrum disorder. This is part of your assignment to complete this class, whether you're a man or a woman. And I want you to take a look at the information that is provided there. Then, I want you to think about what is your role, whether you're a man or a woman. This is a birth defect that is completely avoidable. If you are of childbearing age and you do not intend to have children, man or woman is responsible to use birth control. Whatever that is, you are responsible to do that. That is your job. Bringing a child into the world who has been impacted by substance use is totally the responsibility of the parents of that child. Now, with that being said, oftentimes women do not know they are pregnant in the first 2 to 3 months. That's unfortunate, because during that time is a critical growth period for the brain. When A mother uses substances. She is playing Russian roulette. She doesn't know what effect or what impact is going to be on that fetus who is developing at that time. So, as I said, if you are not planning on having children, use birth control. If you are planning on having children, do not use at all from the time that you decide to have children. Here's the other kicker. Some women will use. It doesn't appear that their children are affected. Other women will use 1 or 2 times and their child is affected. We don't know why, but we know this. If you don't use substances when you're pregnant, you will not have fetal alcohol spectrum disorder. Your baby will not. We say spectrum because over on one end are children who are mildly affected. You might not even notice it. On the other end are extreme, where the child is extremely affected. They will have a lower IQ. They will have social interpersonal problems. They will have emotion management problems. They will have facial deformities. That's on this end. In between are various degrees of impact. We start out with children who may just have a slight abnormality in the facial abnormality, or they might be having some learning disabilities, some behavior problems. As it steps on up, it gets worse. The other thing is you may deliver a baby that looks perfect. And as the baby gets older, you may find that there are some learning problems, there are some behavioral problems, emotional problems, whatever it might be. Those can be fetal alcohol spectrum disorder factor. Those may be some of the symptoms, okay? We don't know why it is. We do know that whatever mom puts in her mouth or in her body, wherever it is, it goes directly into the bloodstream. That blood goes directly through the umbilical cord and circulates through the baby from the moment of conception. Okay, the choice is ours, isn't it? Okay, so that is module 3. I will be sending out packets of information. I'm sorry that I'm behind the 8 ball at this point. This whole pandemic has caused many of us to adapt, make changes, and I'm certainly one of those. And it has been a challenge. I want to rise and meet that challenge. So I'm working hard to get you what you need. So thank you for coming this morning, and I will talk to you again in module 4. Thank you.